This tutorial is going to walk you through how to put together an image using text and creating kind of this texture with it. So you'll get kind of your end result looking like this. Once I have the image open that I'm going to work with, the first step is to duplicate the background layer. That way you always have something to go back to, so it's the non-destructive editing. And then I'm going to add a new layer to write the text on top of. So I'm going to add my layer, and then I'm going to hide my background copy and my background. So I just have a blank screen. And from here I'm going to use my paintbrush and adjust the settings. So I want my opacity to be all the way up at 100%. I'm going to choose a color that I want to work with, so I would just use black. And then I'm going to adjust my paintbrush and choose a size to work with. And once you have that, go ahead and write your word. So I'm going to start out and just write hope. So using my tablet, I'm drawing out my word. And once you have your word drawn out, the next thing you're going to do is create a paintbrush out of it. So you're actually going to be paintbrushing the text back into your image. To make a brush out of the word that you just wrote, you're going to go up to the top of your screen where it says Edit, and then go all the way down to Define Brush Preset. You can give this a title, so I'm going to type in Hope. Hit OK, and then you'll notice right away that it pops up with the text. So one thing you can do, just to save a little bit of time as you go to start to add the text to your actual image, is make another brush that has a couple of words written across it. So maybe change the size of it, so I can change the size of my paintbrush. And maybe add it a couple more times throughout here. That way, if I wanted to really quickly write this word with a couple more of the letters, it's going to go by a lot faster when I'm using my stamp. So then I can turn this entire screen into a stamp itself. So I'm going to go back up to Edit, and then Define Brush Preset, and then you can call it something else. So maybe Hope 2. Then I'm going to hit OK, and you'll note right away that this shows up again as a brush. So if you click on it, it's going to type all of that over and over again. Now what I'm going to do is delete this layer because I already have my brush presets made, so I don't need it anymore. So I'm going to delete it and add another layer, and on this layer I'm going to write another word. So right now I still have all of my hope words showing up. I'm going to get a regular paintbrush back so that I'm able to write my next word. So for this one, I might write happy. Alright, now that I have this word written, I can turn it into a paintbrush preset. So I'm going to go down to Edit, and then go to Define Brush Preset, and I'll title this one Happy, and then hit OK. And then again, maybe I will print this a couple more times. So I'm going to change the size of my brush. And something else you can do as well is change the opacity. So if you wanted part of the brush to be a little bit more see-through than others, you can take the opacity down. And this will add an interesting effect to your image as you're working with your actual photo. And now I'm going to make this word again into a preset. So I'm going to go to Edit, Define Brush Preset, and then type in Happy 2. Hit OK, and then again that's going to go up into your brush preset. So you can see over here the word happy written a couple of times. Now I'm going to get rid of this layer because again I don't need it anymore. So I'm going to delete that layer and then bring my images back to work with. And from here I'm going to add a new layer. And this is the layer that I'm going to be adding as a background. So as I start to delete certain areas of my picture, this background is going to come through and show up. So I'm going to fill this background image with a black color. It doesn't necessarily matter which color you choose, but I would do a more neutral color. And I'm going to put this layer in the middle. So I want my picture layer on the very top. The next step is to add a mask to my picture layer. So I'm going to click the mask button. And now I'm going to fill this in with the black color. So I'm going to switch my color over in the bottom on the presets. So my color is black. I'm using my paint bucket again, and I'm filling in my mask. That way I'm able to bring back parts of my picture as I'm using my paintbrush. So I'm gonna, from there, grab my paintbrush and find one of my presets. So I have happy that comes up, and I'm going to start working with bringing the picture back using my text. So I'm going to switch to white. So I'm going to use white to start to bring back parts of the mask. So when I click, you can see part of the picture shows up. So I might click once. I can again adjust the opacity of this so that it's not as strong. So there's some letterings that look further back in the distance. You can also change the size of your brush, so maybe making this a little bit smaller. And using that, you can maybe write that in a couple of places. And now I'm going to switch to my other brush because again I made those two brushes. If your brush doesn't show up when you click this button over here, you can click on the folder of brushes, which will bring up all of your presets. So you'll be able to find those a little bit easier. So now I see my Hope 2, which is what I called it, and I can start to work with this. And right now I still have the opacity down, but I could bring that back up to make it more visible as I'm working. And maybe I can change the size of this brush, work with it a little bit smaller. If you wanted to use your individual brush, you can. So if you wanted to use one of the brushes that just says happy, that might not be a bad idea to really work on starting to bring back just smaller areas of your picture. So maybe I really want that eye to stand out. I can kind of center where I'm adding the word around that eye. Then maybe I want the outline of the nose to stand out again. So I'm really just clicking and bringing that area back. I can also again make my brush bigger and just play around with where I'm adding my brush to. Now if for some reason there's an area that is too filled, so if this is kind of covered more than I want, I can go back and use the black with my brush and kind of fade areas as well. So now I'm getting rid of more of the areas with my brush. So again, just kind of play around with the placement of everything until you have an image that you're happy with and has a nice effect of what you're going for.